with the recent issue of 150,000 ACCUs to two Queensland grazing families, worth millions of dollars to those two operations, the question that's coming up, and a very good question to be asking, is, well, what did they do? How did they put themselves in a position to be able to now reap the rewards of that? Now, there's a few things behind that. One is that they did invest early. They put their necks out in 2016 to baseline their operations using a really comprehensive soil testing process with CarbonLink. So they went through that process and they put their neck out and made that investment early on. It was a really huge leap of faith for them then, with belief that we get to where we are now. Now that's one part of it. And the bigger part and the more important part is the management of their operation. Now, what have they done? The most important thing that these two businesses have done has run a really effective time control grazing operation. And so what does that mean? It means that they have been able to be in a position where they've put the RCS grazing principles into place in a way that suits them. There's no recipe with any of this. And both businesses have done that in a different way, as have the other businesses that you'll see ACCUs being released in the coming time. But what they've done is they've run a really solid grazing operation where they have had a clear plan for their grazing operation. They've been monitoring really carefully about what's happening and what's changing, and they've been managing with their current reality. And then that's the first grazing principle. And the next two is where it really comes into fruition about what they put into place. And that has been the incorporation of rest. And so they have allowed the plants, the paddocks, to have adequate recovery time between grazes. So they've grazed a paddock and stimulated it, and then they've got out of that paddock and allowed it to recover, allowed the root systems to get down and rejuvenate in between grazing events, which is the critical part of it. It's root systems that drives carbon sequestration. Root systems combined with biology. So they've had that rest and rotation in place. And the second part that's been really important, particularly with these businesses, is they've matched stocking rate to carrying capacity. They've been using the tools that they've had available to them. They've been using their grazing charts. They've been using the forecasting tools that we've got to enable them to see when they need to decrease numbers and then when they've got the capacity to increase numbers, to adjust their stocking rate, the number of animals they're running, depending on their current reality. Now, why is that important? For these businesses here, they've had dieback come through, which has had a huge impact, a negative impact on carrying capacity by reducing it. They've had drought years in this. So one of the businesses has had 2 years of drought out of that 5-year time frame that was measured. And so things haven't gone their way. The critical part is that they've managed with their reality. They've made those necessary changes to manage that grazing operation and to make sure that their beef operations, in this case, beef and sheep, that they have been as profitable as they could be through that period. At the same time, managing that ecosystem health. So with better seasons, that country has absolutely bounced away. And through that 5-year time frame, they've still been able to increase carbon. Now, there's a number of things that we can talk about. We spend a whole week talking about this in the Farming and Grazing for Profit School. And these businesses have spent a lot of time continuing their education. There is no silver bullet. There is no one thing that they've done. They've done a lot of little things really well over a long period of time. They've improved their water infrastructure, so they've got good quality and quantity of water in a reasonable walk to water for the animals. They've worked on stock psychology and behaviour. They've worked on their trading practices, and they've worked on their reproduction and breeding operations. They've worked on their businesses, they've worked on their people, they've worked on everything that is involved in making a healthy business hum. There's no one input, there's no one thing that they've done. So it's a really exciting time. And so understanding what's involved with that is what we specialise in. So we've been working in this space for a very long time, and it's just now that it's exciting that our clients are able to monetize good grazing management and good business practices. And so if you're not implementing the RCS grazing principles, and you're not running grazing charts, then in my opinion, you're really not going to be effectively positioning yourself for this wonderful opportunity that we've now got in the Australian agriculture and grazing sector.